My name is Dr. Kisala, and I'm here to provide an overview of my research into the role of campus climate and satisfaction for students with disabilities in a post-secondary setting. Let's start with some background. College students with disabilities make up the largest minority population and represent a significant number of higher education students, approximately 19% of students in undergraduate programs. Why does this matter? Students with hidden disabilities may be at particular risk of withdrawing from the college setting within the first 3 years. A large portion of students with hidden disabilities do not seek services from or enroll with their Disability Services Office for academic accommodations or other related supports. This is especially the case for students from underinvested communities. This is important. Students with disabilities are members of every demographic and community on a college campus. They report unique experiences related to their post-secondary campus climate and levels of satisfaction with their educational experiences, which seems to be more predictive of their overall college experience and potential retention rates than academic accommodations alone, the latter of which is often prioritized and emphasized as the primary means of support. Who exactly is a student with a disability? For the purpose of this study, I used anyone who self-identified as a person with a disability in the UC Undergraduate Experience Survey. The neurodivergent community accounts for most of the student population with disabilities. This includes anyone who identifies as a member of the autistic or autism spectrum community, as well as students with learning, attention, or psychological neurodivergence. Before outlining the research questions, I want to provide clarity on some terminology. I will be using Latinx in lieu of Hispanic, but recognize UCUES to have collected the latter in the 1617 survey as an identifier for the population. I will also interchangeably use disability or disabled. As mentioned, I used UCUES from the 2016-17 year, which measures campus climate, the perceived levels of campus climate diversity, prejudice, and inclusion. It also measures student satisfaction for their academic experiences, willingness to re-enroll, and sense of belonging. The population was quite large, given the UCUES was for all undergraduate students across all UCs. This was close to 10,000 students who stated or agreed with statements for disabilities like mine. The following research questions examine perceptions on the basis of disability status, gender, ethnicity, and residence status. My first research question, is there a difference by disability status and perceptions of campus climate when compared to those without a disability? Second research question, is there a difference by disability status and levels of student satisfaction when compared to those without a disability? My final research question, is campus climate predictive of student satisfaction scores? Let's go back to my first question. What did I find for campus climate? Disability alone was not significant, so it was not confirmed. I did not find a main effect for disability in campus climate, nor for disability status, gender, and residence status. However, my hypothesis for ethnicity was confirmed. A two-way interaction was found to be confirmed by disability and ethnicity. Simple effects of disability status were run to analyze the interaction between disability status and ethnicity on campus climate perceptions. Also, three-way interactions were confirmed by disability, ethnicity, gender, as well as disability, ethnicity, and residence status. My findings for two-way interactions were that Latinx students with disabilities reported higher campus climate perceptions than Latinx students without disabilities. Multiracial and white students with disabilities reported a lower perception of their campus climate. There were also interactions by disability status, race, and gender. Multiracial males with disabilities reported lower campus climate perceptions compared to multiracial males without disabilities. This was also the case for white females with disabilities when compared to white females without disabilities. The resulting campus climate were clear for African American Black males in that their campus climate scores, irrespective of disability, were lower in comparison to any other group. So putting all this into context, first, Latinx students with disabilities have a smaller but better outlook on campus climate. The findings in this case contradict the expected until you dive a bit deeper. That is because people with disabilities, especially members of non-white communities, have a complex, contentious, or completely different understanding of disabilities. In this case, when the data was disaggregated, Latinx students were more likely to state they experienced hearing negative stereotypical comments. However, it is plausible Latinx students may be likely to misattribute negative campus climate to factors believed to be unrelated to a disability as prejudicial. In other words, they may be much better equipped to identify negative campus climate concerning diversity awareness, cross-cultural comfort, and prejudice as consequential to ethnicity, religion, language, gender, residence status, queerness, trans or non-binary experiences, or culture. These are competing narratives that require negotiation. This aligns with other findings in that conceptually, climate is difficult to pinpoint for students of color with disabilities that may or may not be able to attribute differential treatment, explicit or implicit, as a direct result of their disability. So research question number 2, is there a difference by disability status and levels of student satisfaction when compared to those without a disability? These scores include agreements with statements such as, I am satisfied with my academics, strongly agree, disagree, right? Such as GPA, feeling a sense of belonging at this university, feeling valued as an individual at this institution. The results in this study indicated statistically significant differences between students with disabilities and students without disabilities in their level of satisfaction with their academics and social experiences. That means students with disabilities reported being less satisfied with their GPA, value of their education for the price that they were paying at their campus, and their overall academic experiences. Students with disabilities also indicated lower satisfaction with social experiences compared to students without disabilities. These social experiences students rate within the UCUES modules include their sense of being valued as an individual at their institution, feelings that they belong at their campus, being excluded from social gatherings, and having a sense of social integration. Lastly, results in this study also indicated this effect varies by ethnicity, much like campus climate. In particular, Asian, Hispanic, multiracial, and white students with disabilities reported lower satisfaction with academic and social experiences when compared to the same group without disabilities. For African American and Black students with disabilities, their level of satisfaction was similar and no significant difference were found on the basis of disability. It is important to note, however, that their overall average satisfaction compared to other populations were lower. That is to say, their satisfaction with their academic and social experiences may not differ by disability status, but may uniquely be negotiated by the racial experiences on campus. Finally, I looked at whether or not campus climate was predictive of student satisfaction scores. To test if campus climate predicted satisfaction scores for students with disabilities, a regression with disability status, a z-scored campus climate score, and an interaction between the two variables was conducted. So what did I find? Disability status was negatively associated with satisfaction. Campus climate perceptions were positively associated with satisfaction, and the interaction between disability and climate was significant. The overall model accounted for 19% of the variance for satisfaction, therefore confirming my hypothesis. So what does all this mean? Well, for campus climate, it means there is a significant interaction based on race, ethnicity, and disability. Likewise, gender, ethnic, and resident status influence perceptions of campus climate based on disability. My hypothesis that students with disabilities would experience a lesser sense of satisfaction with their academic and social experiences was found to be supported. More interestingly, I found that campus climate was predictive of satisfaction scores for students with disabilities. In practice, it means institutions of higher education need to be meaningfully investing in increasing how students with disabilities feel about their campus. That includes addressing the lack of social integration, connectedness, and overall sense of belonging, as well as satisfactory fulfillment with their academic experiences. It means addressing the impact campus climate has on students' academic engagement. It means there's an imperative obligation to move beyond equating disabilities to an accommodation process only. Integrating and amplifying the experiences of students with disabilities should not be delegated to one office as a one-off that only addresses unequal access to fundamental facets of student life after the fact. It also means beginning to address the limitations in research related to the disability population. How data is captured is important. In this study, I was limited by how information may be interpreted because of how it is captured. Experiences, especially related to campus climate and belonging, are not linear. Disability as a category is heterogeneous. The survey method limited important aspects of my analysis, such as students having to negotiate their disability, race, or their identities. The implications are only limited by the institutions themselves. There are differences in how students of color perceive and interact with their campus climate. There are significant differences in how policies believed to be benign substantially disenfranchise and exclude students with disabilities. For example, a student from low vision or blind community may be in a course that offers already materials in a PDF, only to later find that the PDFs are inaccessible. Therefore, denying timely access to the course, a benefit afforded to all other students. Likewise, an attendance policy that is punitive may disproportionately impact a student with depression, bipolar, or even a pregnant student in a manner not experienced by other able-bodied, able-minded folks. Policies pertaining to time to degree funding, graduate experiences, all have bearing on campus climate and satisfaction. Students are forced to disclose their disability, request an accommodation, and then receive equal access, but many do not. The examination for interwoven experiences of queer, trans, Black, Indigenous people of color with disabilities has not yet been fully examined. Acknowledgement is vital. Students with disabilities are often invisible. Their experiences are not reflected in research, equity, diversity, or inclusion initiatives on campuses. And when it is, the exploration of the population is relegated to theory, or at best, evaluating the impact of an accommodation. So for the future, additional studies should be conducted to replicate and extend these preliminary findings and to further explore how multiple aspects of student identity, disability type, race, ethnicity, gender, immigration status, for example, influence feelings of satisfaction, belonging, and perception of campus climate among students with disabilities. In the future, longitudinal studies should clarify what happens to students' sense of satisfaction and perception of campus climate over the course of their college career and possible impact that has on retention and degree attainment. Lastly, this study only focused on survey of undergraduate students. It would be interesting to examine the experiences of graduate students and if there are any differences in their perceptions of campus climate and satisfaction in comparison to their peers without disabilities.